Hey you guys, this is literally my 10th time filming this, or like 4th, but I'm gonna try again. So I'm basically taking a walk at one of my favorite spots to run or walk at, which is Silver Lake Reservoir here in LA. I wanted to hop on here. There's this topic I want to discuss and it's really important, and it relates to historical oppression and the form or forms that it takes now. As we know, what's going on right now in Minnesota was the death of George Floyd, who is a black man who was killed by the cops in Minnesota. And this is a story we almost seem to hear every so often. And it's almost like people are choosing to be ignorant to these things, and then other people are almost desensitized to them, and both of those I think are really unfortunate. And I do want to bring up some points that I have been thinking about with these issues. I want to say that obviously it's horrible, it is insane, and black people and black men are targeted disproportionately. That's a fact by the law enforcement, right? We're all kind of aware of that. And if you're not aware of that, I encourage you to do your research. I encourage you to talk to people from that community. And I encourage you guys to just start seeing this as an actual issue, an issue that's very prevalent and has been prevalent for decades, and something that the black community has experienced for decades and centuries, but something that a lot of people are just now waking up to. I'm very grateful for technology that is finally exposing this shit to the rest of the world. But I also want to add that this stuff, this expression of hatred and racism, is just a new or modern form of this hatred, okay? And if you think that by the abolishing of slavery and by the abolishing of segregation, this stuff has gone away, you are misguided. It has not gone away. Oh my God, there's so many car noises around me. This stuff has always been there. It has never been fully addressed. And I want to tie this into the Armenian genocide. Just this week, there was a Turkish man in Istanbul, which is the capital of Turkey, and he ripped off and vandalized an Armenian church. He ripped off the cross off of an Armenian church. And mind you, this is the second occurrence of an Armenian church in Istanbul being vandalized in 1 month. So these are all issues that are interconnected, and they're also connected with the history of oppression against those groups. So I think it's really important for people to make that connection, because I think a lot of times when people talk about this kind of stuff, they don't understand that it's actually rooted in the historical aspect of it. And you hear a lot of times, get over it. You hear it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And I think that's pathetic. And I think that it's misguided to think that way. And okay, I'm like sweating so hard, but yeah. So I think if you are thinking that way, you need to see the bigger perspective. And I also want to introduce the idea that the only way to address a lot of these issues is through a reparations process. I know that word carries a lot of different meanings for different people, but reparations is actually not punishment. It has to do with healing and reconciliation between two groups. And one group is the group that has been targeted, or their ancestors have been targeted, but essentially they're dealing with some form of, an oppression. And the other group is dealing with some sort of privilege based on that oppression. And I think it's important to realize that only reparations, in my opinion, is holistic enough to actually deal with some of these issues from the root cause. Police brutality is a symptom of this mindset, of this intention of hatred. So it is not the cause, it's a symptom. And so I personally believe the only way we can deal with it is a full reparations process. And I say the same thing for Turks and Armenians, because again, the ripping off of vandalizing of churches or racist rhetoric is just a symptom, not the cause. In one of my previous videos, I talked about the notion of forgiveness in the healing process. I think that forgiveness is powerful because it releases both you and the other party, but it does not erase what has happened. So I think we should talk about these things. I think it's really important. If you guys have any comments to add, feel free to do so. Let me know your thoughts. Let's not argue about what happened. We kind of all know. If you've been researched, if you've read a little bit, you know what's happened historically. So let's not argue those things. Let's also not argue that there's no such thing as privilege. Like that kind of stuff is just not productive. I think there's other platforms where you can argue those things. What I want to discuss on this platform and through this video is, how do we move forward? What does reparations look like to you and your community? Especially if you're Armenian, if you're Black American, if you are Native American. But I mean, there's of course examples of this all over the world. You know, there's groups that are studying these things for the history of slavery here. There's a group studying it for the Armenian genocide. And I'm actually going to link a report about the Armenian genocide reparations study group. And there's a whole committee on that. And they are talking about and thinking about what a reparations package would look like. So I will link that in the description. So I think we should get a discussion going, because let me just tell you, this shit cannot continue. Whether it's here, whether it's in Turkey, like, this is absolutely unacceptable. It has been, as a lot of people like to point out, 100, 200 years. So if it's been that long, then it's been too long. So it's a huge crime and we need to take care of it. Okay, bye.